What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the BZ Music Podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Seif.
And I'm your co-host, Ben Weise.
And this is episode 8. Right? Yeah. 4 plus 4, that makes 8. Cool. This week is no different from the others. We've got a fantastic music guest today. We're going to talk about the modern music industry, its ups and downs, and how it impacts and affects us, why we do what we do in the first place, and so much more. Ben, how are we doing today?
I'm all right, man. I'm hanging in there, doing what I'm usually doing. Aside from the the frequent guitar playing sessions and teaching that I do down here, I've been trying to find some new activities to help myself, feel good during these quarantine times. So some of that I've started doing home workouts, which I never thought I would say that. I never thought I would utter those words before. But I've been doing those most days this week. I think maybe 4 out of 4 days this week, 4 out of the 5. And it's just makes me feel like a person again. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, definitely, man. I used to do that stuff all the time, especially throughout high school. I did it a lot in college. Definitely slipped off, a bit in recent years with extra work and whatnot. But today I got to clock in 4.5 hours of playing guitar, so I feel fantastic. Because
Perfect.
as I told you a bit earlier, there's a potential new group that I'll be joining. Keep it on the DL for now. But even if that doesn't work out, this is another 3 hours worth of music that I've just been learning. I've been doing my live streams. That's learning 10 to 15 brand new songs a week. So just trying to get my song learning chops back up, and that's a skill in itself. It's sight reading is one thing, live performance is one thing, but being able to learn a ton of material in a short amount of time, that's a skill all in itself. Yeah. So I like to work on that because it's what I do most of,
Yeah, exactly. There's I think it's a very understated but very important skill, that's in our chosen field, just learning songs. And obviously if you're in an original band, you want to write songs and have original material, but there's something to be said about just having a repertoire under your belt of of other songs, whether it's in numerous contexts, for jazz especially, because you're all the standards and all the classic tunes are you got to learn those. And or if you're in a cover band, an event band, and you're playing those pop hits, rock hits, all that stuff. Oh, yeah. So it's a very underemphasized part of in some ways it's very underemphasized, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of those things where you have those guys. I forget the drummer, but there's a specific drummer who filled in for all these metal bands, in the 2010s and whatnot. And he'd get a call and he'd be like, "Hey, next week can you go sub for Periphery?" And it's that's telling us, "Hey, can you go fill in for Dream Theater in a week?" That shit just doesn't happen. But then you get the guys who can do it, and that's where I want to get to. I want to get to the point where it's hey, so-and-so needs you to fill in. The gig is next week. Can you do it? And you got to learn, anywhere from a half hour to 3.5 hours of material in 1 or 2 weeks. You got to figure out how to learn songs. It's a whole thing in itself, man. But other than that, I've been working on the finals for this semester at Berkeley. Got one that'll be due next week, and then the other one is due in 2 weeks. I said due. That's a pretty funny word if you think. Haha. But what's not due is the special guest that we have for today.
What a transition.
Liam, I apologize. I've got my good friend and fellow musician, Liam McGeary. if you guys are watching this podcast, you know him because he just knows everyone. Hands down, nicest guy I probably ever met. He reminds me exactly like Matt Halper, the drummer Periphery. Not only because he's a drummer, but because he talks the same way. He's just everyone's friends. He's super cool. He's super smart and knowledgeable about music, and he's more versatile than I could ever be. So without further ado, I want to bring him on because we just have so much to talk about. So give him a second. Ladies and gentlemen, Liam McGeary!
What's going on, guys?
There he is.
Oh, what's up? There we go. Dude, I haven't seen your face in so long. I miss you.
It's been a while. It's good to see you guys. How you holding up?
See you too, man. Doing well, man.
I'm doing
good.
It's all music. I was telling Ben earlier.
Yes.
Possible new project in the works, so I've been learning 3.5, 4 hours worth of material for that. This past week, on top of finals for Berkeley this semester.
That's right, man. That's right. You're a collegiate dude.
It's been a party. What about you, Ben?
Well, aside from the usual thing I'm doing, well, I mean, to Zach it's usual, but Liam, I recently got this little guy. This little
is that a Scarlet?
Yeah.
Dude, I have one arriving on my doorstep in hopefully the next couple hours, so I'm super excited. Which one did you get?
The 2i2.
Cool. I got the solo just because I don't think I'll be going crazy with anything. But that's awesome, dude. You like it so far?
Yeah, I really do. And it's been, I've been doing a lot of things, recording, like sending people stuff like that. I recently, someone I know recently hit me up to like write some music for an EP, and
awesome.
that he's trying to like put together. So that's kind of I've been like figuring out how to like put all that together this week. And
very cool, man.
Yeah, and on top of just like trying to just like collab with people and send riffs back and forth and all that stuff. So it's like I finally entered the 21st century.
No, that's great, man. I've been wanting one for the longest time, and I finally just there's no better time for recording than now. So I finally got one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
What have you been up to, dude?
Nothing much. Tell you the truth, I've been trying to spend most of my unemployed quarantine time exercising, getting back into shape a little bit. So I've been running a ton, running and biking and kayaking.
Nice.
That's been all like my outdoor activity, and other than the days I'm locking myself in my room and just doing music stuff. I'm working on a while. Let's see, about 2-3 years ago, I wrote music for a production of Macbeth. That was really fun with a company called Rethink.
Okay.
That I did was like a lot of like old like Scottish war drum type music, and they're kind of doing a virtual production of it. So I'm trying to put some of those recordings and stuff together for that.
I know someone else who's doing it. I can't remember who though, but I've been seeing the posts on Facebook. I don't remember.
Oh, awesome!
It's an actress, I think.
Okay, yeah. They do such good work there. It's so awesome, and they provide free theater and entertainment for everybody, and it's really cool. So I've been doing a little bit of that. I've been doing a lot of virtual collabs with my friend Chris Curcio.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have ever worked with him. He's a music director. Yeah.
No.
I think you guys worked with Galen though. Galen's playing percussion on a couple of things.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of like theater people throwing in tracks for everything. So it's been
cool.
fun. Yeah. And I've been amazed because I've been recording drums. Ben, actually, you messaged me about it on just using a MIDI microphone and using these Logic presets for like room microphone for picking up drums, and they sound so good. I'm just like blown away by it. It's awesome.
Wow. That's crazy.
So, and I haven't really been into like recording, especially for drums, just because I'm like, it never sounds as good. But I've been trying to put together projects that way, and of course, making my little acapella app projects, and I'm just trying to fiddle around and play music.
Yeah, like now's the time. Now's as good a time as any to just try things that you haven't tried before.
Yeah, and even going back over certain stuff, I have a notebook that I use for lessons throughout college, and I've been kind of going through that. I'm just trying to go through things I forgot, and yeah, I just remember I'll play something that's so funny. It's like, yep, I remember that kicked my ass then, and it kicks my ass.
Yeah, Ben, you were kind of doing that with revisiting your jazz catalog recently, right?
Yeah, I have just like 4 or 5 folders worth of all the stuff that both Vic and Dave gave me over the years. And I was just like, some things I didn't really get at the time. A lot of it just kind of went right over my head. But then I'm looking back at it. I'm like, holy shit, this is deep. This is deep stuff right here.
It's a blessing being able to revisit that kind of stuff. And it's so funny that the things that click now that didn't click then, just from like having it on your brain and having the time to kind of process it.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. And especially if you come across stuff, it's like, oh wow, I didn't really pay attention to that at the time. Let me do that now. And you're like, kind of make it up for lost time, I suppose.
Every now and then I'll bust out something like for my students, but it'll also be like a revisiting for me as well too.
Oh. My favorite part about teaching, man. Yeah, it's my favorite thing about teaching.
I have students now where, they have the Ionian, the basic shape down for the major scales up and down the guitar, but now I'm trying to shift some of them to, like 3 notes per string, moving them up and down, the whole Rick Beato thing. And for piano, I'll pick a song kind of, that I kind of want to learn how to play that I know is within the student's skill house, and I'll pick that out, kind of work it out a bit, and then teach them, and then they'll start finding different ways to kind of play it, and, it's almost like a back and forth. With guitar, it's all me telling them what to do, drums, same way, but when it comes to, my piano students or the students who do, more than one thing, it's like we're kind of bouncing off each other, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah. So a couple things that I wanted to talk about today. We'll start with the first one. We just need a basic introduction for people who don't know who Liam McGeary is.
Which, if you don't know who he is, then I don't know.
Yeah,
you're too nice, Ben.
The only people who watch the podcast are people from Central Jersey, so they probably know Liam anyway. But for those of you guys who don't, Liam, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, dude? Kind of, what got you started into music, where you are, what you've done, what school you went to, that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. My name is Liam McGeary. I'm from North Brunswick, New Jersey. I'm primarily a drummer. That's where a lot of my work comes from, but I also do some music directing, some piano, and then I do a lot of onstage, theater work too, as well. But yeah, and I teach. I taught at Guitar Center for a few years in East Brunswick. I taught piano, drums, voice, and ukulele. I went to Mason Gross School of the Arts at Rutgers with my man Ben over here. I majored in jazz studies and music education. I primarily do a lot of theater work. That seems to be my favorite thing to do, because it combines kind of all my favorite things. But I've done some studio stuff. I played with the band Crime Alert while I was at Rutgers, doing some pop punk stuff. I've done some jazz gigs, all the odd gigs in between, and yeah, that's as best as I could do, I guess.
Hey man, that works. Yeah, you and I have done. I'm thinking of all the people I've done gigs with. I've probably done the second most non-band gigs, with you, with all the theater stuff and the stuff with Joe Lesky. Some pretty good times there. We've done the theater stuff. We've done playing in theaters but not doing musical theater, and then also the studio stuff together, which is just it's always a blast, especially doing overdubs. You're over there on a tambourine or some congas. I've got my second
just the finger snaps.
And it's everyone else in the room watching the two of us, we were making noise with our hands and our instruments in the room, so it probably sounds like this terrible ASMR video. It's good to have you back on here. So the first thing I want to talk about, and this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to reach out to you, Ben and I have been talking, with most of our guests about, like networking in general, but mostly being a good hang. And I think one skill that you are very strong in is just being a guy who, even if you're not getting along with the person, you can work with them really well. But you're also just, every time I'm like, oh, do you know Liam? They're like, love Liam. That is the first thing out of their mouths. Like, he's such a great guy to work with. Not just your musicality, but just the way you are as a person. So I hope that you can kind of shed some light on your approach to working with people and kind of like networking in general, because you always have a real positive attitude when we perform, So, what are your thoughts on that?
So I guess my outlook onto all that really came from how I felt getting into it. I went through a really great program in North Brunswick led by Jamie Egan, who's actually the trumpet player for Streetlight Manifesto for those ska people in the room. But yeah, he just had established such a good environment there, and it was like I'm sure for a lot of people, like the band wing and like the music wing of the school was just like a safe place. It was kind of like everyone called it home because you knew that there were good, welcoming people there. So that really kind of shaped my view about how to conduct myself and how to treat other people, because that's kind of what brought me into it, But and it's also it was a really, really diverse school, so I really kind of adapted the mindset really soon that everyone I meet has so much to offer, and I can learn so much from. So I try and listen as much as possible, ask many questions as possible, and just learn as much as possible from the people that I work with. But also, most people I feel like just want to have a good time and want to laugh with you and learn and get better. And sometimes I think it's especially meeting a new person, it can be tough to get past that first step with somebody if they're a little nervous or like, oh, I don't know, like my music abilities, like I don't know about that. So I always try and apply the kind of the drum circle mindset to things where, listen, it doesn't matter your ability level or anything, your ability that doesn't alter your ability to contribute. Everyone has something to contribute. Yeah. Yeah, I love that drum circle vibe. But for those of you who've never been in a drum circle, I can't recommend it enough for those hippy dippy people out there. But yeah, and it's really been the same across all environments, whether it be the theater thing or the studio thing or meeting bands at venues. There'll always be kind of people that take themselves a little too seriously, but I really think that sometimes, most of the time, that comes out of a place of nervousness and of being like having a fear of inadequacy. Mm-hmm. But I've always been okay with a little bit of inadequacy. So, and that was just like, I came up through that safe environment of, it's okay if you mess up, or it's okay that you don't know how to do something, because now you just have the opportunity to learn. So I'm always the first to admit, hey, I don't know how to do this, but I will learn, and I'm excited to learn how to do it. And that's really what got me into the theater thing and with picking up new instruments. It's kind of a blessing and a curse that I don't really, I think, spend as much time with one instrument because I get bored quickly. So I like moving around between different instruments, piano and drums, and most recently guitar, which I have to text you guys definitely soon, because it's been a time. But it's good. Yeah. I find myself improving. Because all the instruments I play, though, definitely I find I have a very I'm definitely going off tangent, so feel free to interrupt me. But I'm getting away from networking. But I have a very percussive approach to every instrument I play, so I'm trying to expand that a little bit. But back to networking and back to the question at hand. I think that's been my biggest kind of tool is the mindset of knowing that everyone you meet has something to contribute to you as a musician and as someone who hangs.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Ben, what are some of your thoughts on networking, working with other people, and just coming together, and your kind of attitude towards all that stuff.
Well, in kind of in response to Liam's approach, like it definitely took me a bit longer to develop a similar approach to that, like to networking, and how it's like it's not all, because like I feel like to some people when you say the word networking, it doesn't really sound like, it doesn't like that, and like being a hang doesn't necessarily sound like one and the same at face value. So like, for me, it definitely took some time, just because like I'm naturally not that talkative, and I'm not, or maybe not talkative. Maybe talkative's not the best word, but like I'm not.
Right, because you talk
a little more introverted, you'd say. A little more introverted.
A little more introverted, But then
especially to me, who's like, especially in comparison to me, who's just like way too extroverted.
No, there's no shame in that at all.
No, because there's introverts, there's extroverts, and then there's Leo.
But it's it definitely took me a while, because I was like, whereas like Liam, you said you kind of had that environment where it was like, it was kind of like not as big a deal if you like messed up or didn't know like how to do a certain thing. In my case, I was fucking terrified of being even the slightest bit like, inadequate, I guess, so like getting over that kind of getting over that kind of mental roadblock, for me was a little, it's still like, it's still something that I deal with, to this day, just like accepting the fact that, I don't know a lot of things, and that's okay, so.
Yeah. The fear of being judged can really be paralyzing. And it goes up and down depending on the environment, for sure. But I think it's one of those things that gets in the way more than a lot of people realize.
But then, like, I think what changed was like, maybe like, it was probably like, somewhat directly or indirectly, inspired by like by people like Liam, or by, like people in like our like area, like kind of what we do, like the theater stuff, and just kind of seeing how like, sometimes, not everyone says, like does the right, knows what they're doing, or says the right thing, or like plays the right notes or whatever. But a lot of them are like very like, like they're not really like ashamed of that. It's kind of just like, they're kind of just like throwing whatever, throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks. And so like, I was like,
that's jazz, baby.
That's jazz, baby.
That's just, exactly. And it's so important for a creative environment to feel that way, to feel safe and vulnerable to throw stuff out. Because how else do you discover things if you don't try, and if you don't have the safety to kind of try new things and learn new things? So,
and I felt like rather than just like, rather than like, look around like, oh man, like everyone's like so much better than me, or like, so much more, and like, that's just okay. It's like, maybe they are, but that does, like, get your ass out there and like, get at it yourself. That's kind of like, it was kind of just like, I kind of like, thought thinking about it, it's like, oh, I'm so scared. And then that's one half of my mind is like, oh, like I'm terrified to do it. The other half is like, stop being a fucking baby. Like, just go out, like, do it. If you say a dumb thing, then you say a dumb thing, whatever. At least,
well, I'm just, you guys knowing me, and for those of you who don't know me, saying dumb things is like my my that's my biggest thing. That's what I got going for me. I say a lot of dumb things.
Hey man, so
Yeah.
you want me to like play the drums here, right? You know.
Yeah. Oh man. But what did I? I had a gem the other day, but I forget what it was. But Ben, something you were saying the other day, well, just now, but it made me think about one of my favorite phenomenons in like playing in a group, and that's when you just get back from a break, and it starts with one person sitting in a different seat and picking up someone else's instrument. And then like another person will be like, oh, well, he has my instrument, so I'm going to pick up this other instrument. And someone else sits down and someone else sits down. And everyone just starts to fuck around with different instruments. Yeah. That's what it should always be like. It should always you feel safe enough to pick up an instrument that you have no idea how to play. And someone shouting out, oh, you do this, and this. Or, oh, well, how do I do this? You know what I mean? Like that's what it should always be about. And if there's any group that's not like cool, is not a group that I want to play with. You know what I mean?
I want no part of that group.
Yeah,
definitely. No, yeah.
But just what Ben was saying about that kind of fear. I think another thing, not even being judged, but just the fear of seeing someone and knowing that someone's better than you, being afraid to like then play your instrument or then to try something, you know, because you don't want to, I don't know, you don't want to confirm the realization that they're better than you. I don't know. It's such a weird thing, but it's so visceral that you get the heavy feeling in your chest when you see someone like if it's a jam and you just see someone shred, and it's kind of like fight or flight, right? I think a lot of people have a fight or flight for that, where it's either like, oh man, I'm not good enough to play, or a lot of really brave and just amazing musicians I know, and even people that may not even be the best players are just brave, like, oh, I'm in, like I'm nowhere near as good as you, but I'm gonna add to this somehow. I have so much respect for that, because that's always been something hard to find within me, for sure.
For sure. And perfect to piggyback right off that, I was going to say, you know, if I can be the least experienced person in the room, that's going to be the best thing for me. Because if you walk in and you're the best one there, cool, you can maybe ride that out a bit. But, you know, you see all the great musicians who were in a band for a handful of years and then left to be solo because they just kind of outgrew that. Not because they're like, oh, I'm the best shit ever. I mean, some of them are like that and, you know, they didn't get far. But the ones who were like, I need more. I need to do something else. What if I did it by myself? Which is one of the scariest things you can do. Hey, I'm going to put out an album that's just me, and if it sucks, it is all on me. It's not the bass player, it's not the producer. I did everything, so it's all on me. You know, so one of the a new opportunity that I have, you know, which I won't talk about yet because it's still kind of on the DL. I'll be the youngest person in the band, which all but one band I've always been the youngest person. And I think that's great because it shows that people who maybe have a bit more skin in the game are eager enough to give me a chance, or believe that I can play just a little bit better than where I, you know, am portrayed in the grand scheme of things. So I'm totally cool with that. You know, if it just gives you this stage, you know, for lack of a better word, to okay, so this is where you are, this is where these guys are. Everything that happens in between is based on how you pick up on what they've learned through how they interact, you know,
listening,
and with each other, and how the crowd is reacting to that. So, you know, I was telling Ben in a previous episode, I used to have, I don't think it was performance anxiety, because I was never afraid, like, playing my guitar, like, you know, like, my fingers aren't playing. It was the before the show, like, either the day before or the day of. But it was so stupid, and I hated it because it went on for, like, 3 or 4 years really, really badly. And it would, like, wreck me for the first day, and then I'd be totally fine afterwards. So doing that enough got to the point where I wake up and I'm like, yo, I got a show. I want to leave now and just get there and do it because I'm so excited.
Yeah.
You know, which is one of those things that I'm happy I just had to keep on doing it and doing it and doing it.
Yeah, that's how you
Otherwise-
develop that's how you get over that, for sure. The more times you go through it.
You know, I would have never, kept on doing it. So it got to the point where, quarantine happened and I'm like, well, I don't want to just stop playing music in front of people, but I can't just kind of go out and do it. So I had to start doing my live streams all by myself. And it's like, it is me in front of a camera. Now, luckily, I've never been camera shy. I've been doing videos. I've been posting videos on Instagram since like 2013, 2014. So I'm kind of used to being in front of a camera and being like, either, hey, this is really great, or dude, this is really shit. So like, you should like stop doing it. So I'm like, I'm just gonna do it twice as hard because,
Yeah.
So
and the live aspect of it makes it so much like it feels like a performance. You know what I mean? When you start that video camera, you feel your heartbeat. All right, like I'm live now.
It's
this
time.
is it.
And it's great because, it's the same couple friends and family and then other people. My live streams are usually between 150 to 800 people, depending on the week and the theme, which sometimes it's more people than I play in front of during a regular show. So I'm
Right. That's
so
awesome.
It's been a great way also, I was telling Ben, to learn a lot of material in a short amount of time, which is a whole skill in itself for another episode. But, it's been really great just getting my chops up. I'm able to get in like 2 to 4 hours a day right now on top of the teaching, the school, all the other crap that's going on. It's funny, I'll talk to my students who are like done with school now, and I'm like, so what do you do every day? And they're like, well, I sleep in sometimes, and then mom wakes me up, I have breakfast, and then like I go play Fortnite, and then I play with my friends outside, and like I come in and I play Fortnite again. And I'm like, I wish that free time was a thing, but at the same time, I'm also glad that I don't have nothing going on, because my schedule keeps me busy and it keeps me waking up every day doing something a little bit different every day. I do my riffs of the day every day. I post on Instagram 3 to 4 times a week. I work my live streams, the music for this new band, the Berkeley stuff, the podcast, the Instagram live. There's just so much awesome stuff, and
it's your obsession, man.
Dude, it's the result of 12 years of just not saying no until you have to say no because you can't physically do things.
Yeah. Oh, been there. But Zach, what you said reminded me so much of what you said about not even getting nervous during, but like before, like not while you're playing. But that's so true, because that's always happened to me, especially if it's something that's challenging and I know it's coming up and like, oh man. But then as soon as that first beat comes in, it's just like
it's gone.
Your muscle memory takes gone. Yeah, completely gone. And that's just such a beautiful thing about music, man, and of it being so physical. Especially, I mean, that's why I think I fell into drums so much, is that it's so physical and just like a visceral experience. Yeah. It's just like my brain shuts off.
Yeah, the first time that I remember it being really bad was before we did. It's funny. I don't think I got, because like it used to make me sick in the morning too. I don't think it happened for Godspell, but it definitely happened for In the Heights. Right? Those were both 2016, I think.
That was a tough one,
because that was the hardest show I had done up to that point.
In the Heights is such a bitch.
I am so white and lack so much ethnic and Spanish rhythm in general that when I got that book, I looked at some of these songs and I'm like, are these rhythms like playable on the guitar? It's not even that it's like just so far out there. It's just that every genre of music has its own little quirks, and even I'm just realizing some of that now. The past year or two, I've been really trying to work on my funk rhythms because they are so in the pocket. Like those pockets are going down to your like feet deep. The pockets in those songs.
Gotta get that white boy rhythm working.
For real, dude.
Oh man, but that was a fun one, man. I've done that show I think 4 times now, and it definitely it doesn't get any easier, but kind of what the challenges are of each song, so you kind of know what to go into it.
I need like a second go at that show because, like Zach, when I first played it, I was like not. I was very clearly a white guy playing a not white show. You know?
Like, did it sound bad? No. Did it sound good? When the crowd complained, the music director didn't complain. You didn't make me turn off my amp for certain parts, and that's all that really matters. But that's one of those things where I'll try to grind so hard before then, so when I show up to the first rehearsal, I am well enough prepared that I need to listen to what else is going on. That's a big thing of mine, is I can look at the piece of paper and read it, but as much as musical theater sticks to the score, it's just as often doesn't when it comes to a vamp or a missed cue or that guy came in a measure late. So you have to know what's going on around you and just kind of keep that eye on the director. But also, I want to know what the trumpet is doing on the third song, because when he hits that high note, that's when I come in. So that's like another cue for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drums have a fill here, and then that's when I kick on the distortion or whatever. So that's why I think this all kind of ties back into networking, because if you're comfortable with the people you're working with, you can rely on them for when maybe you're not quite 100% where you want to be or where you need to be. They will help you, because at the end of the day, you're all working together to do something that's greater than just yourself,
Yeah. To get back to the networking thing, and about kind of that fight or flight thing that we're talking about, and how some people have that reaction to kind of, I'm a little nervous and I'm scared of being judged. I think my approach to playing and hanging out with a group of people is making sure that no one feels like they're going to be judged, especially by me, because then I'm kind of, if I give that vibe, then I'm censoring that person and I'm not going to hear their 100%. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're going to hold back or they're going to be subdued. And that's the last thing I want. I want them to feel good about themselves, comfortable, so that they can give their 100% authentic selves. And that way I can learn as much as possible from them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It's definitely like something.
That's
something
been my approach to it is. So I'm selling myself. If I come off that way, then I'm selling myself short of my experience with this person. You know what I mean? So I want to get as much as I can from the experience of hanging out with these people as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like for my personal experience, like discovering that improvisation was a thing was like huge in that regard, because it was like, I don't know, like I was a very like, I'm like, I'm pretty reserved, like when you first meet me, or like, like introverted, I guess. But like when I discovered that you don't have to not just in music, but just like in in conversation too, like you you don't have to just like pre-plan out, like script everything out word by word by word. You can just like free form stuff like that. I was like, that's a thing. Like, like people can do that. And I was like, that, like, I'm so happy that like I discovered that, because like, that's how I kind of go about, talking to anyone now. I'm just like, I could like not know a thing about them, or like not know a thing of what they're talking about. Like, I'm like, like I'm eager to learn, and I will do my damnedest to hold my end up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's my whole existence, man. Not knowing what's going on, but just looking to learn as much as possible, for sure. Yeah, I remember when I learned about kind of what improvisation really was. I was in 8th grade, and I went into a jazz band rehearsal at the high school, because through my friends I knew some people, and I'd seen them play at concerts. I'm like, oh yeah, let me see what's going. So through my teacher and the teacher at the high school, I was able to go and sit down. And I remember looking at the sheet music at the drummer. I'm like, wait, how does, like, I know how to read music. I'm like, how is he taking what's on that paper and doing that? I'm like, what? Where does that, like, what's the disconnect that I'm missing? But yeah, I think listening though is what really kind of shaped my approach to everything is.
Yeah,
I'd have to like, and that's still my if I mean, and that was my all of my thoughts from playing at Mason Gross. If we were doing a new tune, I'd make like a playlist of just like at least 10 different renditions of that tune. Okay. And then I'd kind of know how to improvise just because I know kind of all the things. And yeah,
I think that's something that I lack.
Improvising, man.
That's something that I failed to do when it came to jazz, because like, you know, I would just kind of go on how we would be doing it, you know, in the ensemble or whatnot, and I just listen to like the one recording. But then my friend would be like, "Oh, this is a sax piece, so here's the you know Coltrane version of it," or if it was a trumpet piece, so here's the Miles version. So I would at least get one recording to kind of go off of. But that's something where if I went back to jazz and that was something to do, I would listen to more than just the one recording, because you're right, you're never going to get the same thing twice, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I've thought that same thing about pop covers too. When looking to cover a pop song, I'll look up as many different covers as I can. And even if I'm taking something and if it's like a ballad version of it, I want to listen to that. I want to hear the different kind of alterations that they make to the melody. I want to hear everything. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Scary Pockets. And they do amazing funk covers of songs. It's kind of like a Scott Bramley type of thing, but more funk focused. Yeah. And it is just so good. I love all the renditions they do of everything. And especially as guitar players, I don't know if you guys have checked them out, but you would absolutely love it.
I have to put it on my list.
Yeah, Scary Pockets on YouTube. Unreal.
Yeah, it's like when I try to get better at drumming myself, you know, and then be able to, you know, teach the kids better. Back in high school, that's when Luke Collins started his YouTube channel. So I'd watch this dude who looked like he was my age almost, playing Skrillex on the drums, because that's when dubstep was big.
Yeah, Luke Collins is amazing at that stuff too.
But everything he's done since then, because I followed Luke Collins, so the shit he's doing with Jason Richardson right now, it's not even playable by a human, but he's doing it. And I'm like,
right.
It's not even the fact that it's technical, but it's so clean and melodic that it makes what I thought I was like, you know, like an okay drummer. It's like I never picked up the sticks before listening to some of that stuff. Crazy, but it's motivation to be like, oh, so it sounds like that because at this one point it's like instead of just doing a circular motion, he's, you know, maybe he'll start on the high tom, come back to the snare, go to the floor tom, so it's not do, it's like do, you know, so it gives it a different feel and a different sound. So then when I go to take a drum fill, you know, it was one of those things breaking out of starting on the snare or starting on here or whatnot. It's I'm just gonna hit whatever fucking drum I want, and then if I hear a little,
that's how you discover it. Yeah,
you go do. You know, it's all in the head for sure.
Yeah, I think you should leave at least minimum 5 minutes of just, like, for lack of a better term, fuck around time on your instrument when you practice, because that's how you discover new things. Like, I love just starting to play something and not even know what I'm doing, and just like kind of just let and try weird and new things. And a lot of time it probably sounds awful, but yeah, so every once in a while you'll discover something really, really cool. Luke Collins really great. Some guys I watched coming up with who covers amazing. I think he's South African. His name's Cobus Portiger something. Amazing. Yeah. And then Casey Cooper, I really got into. He's unreal. He's so cool, and he's just like such a happy, like smiley, nice guy too.
So he's you. This is a great way to transition to the second half, which is talking about, you know, we just kind of been talking about like how to get influence from other sources. So I wanted to take the last, 10-15 minutes or so and talk about influential records. So specific albums where something about it just kicked you into this whole new gear, or one of my favorite things is when an album makes me rediscover why I started doing this in the first place. So I'll start and try to make this as short as possible because I could do a whole video essay on this. But every year, right, since like 2013 or so, I would always post on Facebook my top 5 or my top 10 albums of the year because I listen to a lot of new music during the year. And, you know, we talk about it, debate it. People tell me why I'm wrong. People tell me why I'm right. You know? So the 3 albums that always come up in like my, you know, top 5, top 10, top 100, the top 3 are always the same, and it's really in no particular order. But I always put Appetite for Destruction. So Ben, the fact that you're wearing that shirt is hilarious. That is the record that got me into playing guitar. So, you know, Guitar Hero 3 came out, what, 2006 or so?
Yeah.
And everyone and their brother and mother and everyone played it. My aunt played it. So we, you know, when we got it, because y'all just kind of wanted to try it out. So eventually it was one of those, oh, this game is really cool. And then I started playing it all the time, and I'm like, this is cool. And then my dad got me, he let me listen to Appetite for Destruction because, you know, Slash was a playable character in that game. So I listened to it, and I was like, it was my first real introduction to, like, you know, hard rock, and I thought it was just the coolest thing. So long story short, got a guitar, started on acoustic, you know, and for years never learned a Guns N' Roses song, which is really funny. You know, and I really only do listen to Appetite for Destruction, but, you know, that's the album that started the whole thing, so I always hold it up there. It was also, when it came out, the highest selling debut record of the time. And I think the songwriting and raw energy just on that first record is great, you know, because nothing that they put out after lived up to it, but it was just a phenomenal record, in my opinion. So that's always up there because it got me started. And then the 2 albums that kind of kept me going afterwards, when I discovered, this isn't my top 3, but it's in the top 5, Systematic Chaos by Dream Theater. When I first discovered Dream Theater, I was in a parking lot of a Kohl's, and I threw on Seton Hall's Pirate Radio. And now, again, this is back when I was in like 7th grade, so I just was listening to this song, and I was like, what is this? Because I had only been playing guitar for like maybe a year, or I hadn't even been playing guitar yet, but it was called The Dark Eternal Night, and I was like, oh, that sounds so cool. So I go home, I check it out. It's Dream Theater. Only song I know by them until my freshman year of high school, when my friend who was a senior literally texted me one day like, hey, are you free? And I was like, yeah. He's like, cool, I'm outside your house, we're going to a record store. And I never saw a vinyl record before either, so I'm like, Mom, my friend Abe is here, like, we're gonna go to like the record store. And she was like, what kind of person is you? Is this safe? You know, blah blah. And I was like, it's fine. So I go and I see the Dream Theater CD that it was on, and John Petrucci all just for days after that. You know, there's a reason why I have his amp, his guitar. You know, I've got a little shrine over there because he showed me what you could do with the guitar. It wasn't just this instrument, it was a lifestyle. It was, you've got 2 hands, you've got all these things you can use to make the sound different. It was just a whole mind fuck, in my opinion. And then the next 2 albums or so, when As I Lay Dying's record Awakened came out, in my opinion, production wise, it's got an incredible sound. It's one album where I can listen to it from beginning to end, not skip a song. Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory is the same exact way for me. That was my teen angst album in middle school.
Oh,
and
love Linkin Park.
It's so good. And then the last 2 records I want to talk about, Periphery 2. When Periphery 2 came out, that's when I discovered them. And listening to that album, it was my first exposure to you know, like modern progressive metal that, you know, wasn't Dream Theater or anything. And it was the first Gent album that I heard. And the production on that album was just so good. And I had never heard so many elements combined at the same time before. So that's what made me want to go from here to here. And then the last album that really did that for me was Pat Metheny's Bright Size Life. It was my freshman year of college. I changed music teachers. And I know that my high school music teacher for years tried to get me to listen to more jazz guitar, and I just thought it was so old and just so not cool to listen to. I put on Bright Size Life with Pat Metheny, and my jaw just hit the floor. I was like, this is jazz guitar? Like, this is just one guitar track, one bass track, one drum track, no overdubs. And I'm like, yeah. Like, I couldn't even explain what I was hearing, but I went on to learn the majority of that album, and it just opened up so many concepts on the guitar. So those were some influential records for me. What about you, Liam? What were some records that just totally revamped what you thought about music or your instrument?
So the one that started it all was James Brown 50th Anniversary Collection. So I got a hand-me-down miniature drum set when I was 4 years old, my 4th birthday, from my older cousin, yep. And I put them down in this little corner office in my basement. And I had a CD player, these like little shitty headphones, and I found this James Brown CD. And I thought the guy on the front just looked like he was having the best time. I'm like, this looks awesome. So I plugged it in, and I would just listen and like bang. I couldn't even tell you like what I played. I don't even think I knew what I was doing, but I just like hit random drums through the whole CD. And I would do that at least once a day for the longest time. The James Brown 50th Anniversary Collection, and just listening to Clyde Stubblefield, the Famous Flames. They will always just be like, that's the music like of my heart. That's just, and I think applies to like all other music I play and listen to, is that right there. That was really the kind of beginning of it all. Right along with that CD was Elvis's #1 gold hits, because I was a really big Elvis fan. Yeah, really big Elvis fan. Like Burnin' Love and Little Less Conversation. Those just like got me moving. I'm like, I just loved it. And again, I couldn't tell you what I was playing, but I just would just bang, bang, bang and listen to those songs. When it got to like actually like listening and playing things, what changed it all was really the Beatles. And like kind of like listening, like wanting to mimic what I would hear. And then the two albums really when I got like serious about playing drums was American Idiot and Blink-182 self-titled album. And especially Blink-182 is really what just like did it for me and made me want to play drums. Just because that music to me is just like, it was like all about the drums. And like the way Travis Barker plays drums, it's like it just adds so much to the point where it is the song. Like the drums are
it's just
the song.
Power chords and then him, and then the vocals.
Yeah.
Their vocals,
It's so iconic and would just like get my heart going. That's really what it came down to. I had some honorable mentions here. Bob Marley's Legend album, and then Kind of Blue were my kind of top albums. That's really the album that kind of...
If you don't own a copy of Kind of Blue, did you really go to school for music?
Yeah.
I mean, come on now.
Nope. late Jimmy Cobb. Jimmy Cobb just passed away a few weeks ago, unfortunately. But R.I.P. That album was just absolutely amazing. And Bob Marley's Legend just really like, I could listen to that any hour of any day. That's just,
is that the 3-disc collection?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a copy of that from my and every now and then we'll just throw it on the record, the stereo player, just kind of crank it up a little bit, and it's just
it's perfection. That's just certain albums like that are just perfection for sure. But yeah, it all came after James Brown. That's where it all started for me.
That's awesome. What about you, Ben? Finish us up here.
Well, I mean, before I started playing guitar, I was always I always heard like a bunch of music, like playing around the house, like all just.
Oh, did we lose him there?
Yeah, he's frozen for me.
We'll give him a second. It's all good. I'll edit it out. Cool. Let me shoot him a message and see if maybe like his device
all good.
Or something.
While you're doing that, when you mentioned Guitar Hero, Zach, something jumped up in me. I think that those games, Guitar Hero and Rock Band, were just like life changing for me.
Hello?
And yes, you're good. Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Hey man, sorry you went out for us a little bit.
Cool. So let me reintroduce that, and then I'll fade it back.
Yeah.
All right, Ben.
Okay.
So why don't you finish us off with your influential albums, things that just blew your mind apart?
Okay. So like my dad was always like a big like music head like in the house. He was like the one who had like just like, you know, boxes and boxes of vinyl records or CDs, and like there was always like something else, like something you know, different playing in the house, whether it was like Pat Metheny or Tower of Power or like
Tower of Power.
Take
So
Five. Tower of Power is actually my first concert, so that was
amazing.
yeah.
Amazing.
So that was you know, I mean, like, you know, really, I mean, anything by Tower of Power, like early on, like Sold Out, or like you know, like the kind of like a lot of the stuff they put out in the '90s. Well, there's one tune, Funk the Dumb Stuff. I forget. I think it's on Monster on a Leash is the name of the record. But that, I mean, yeah, that and like Sold Out and like even the earlier stuff, like that was just like it was very, you know, different than like, you know, whatever music that like, you know, early 2000s, you know, 5 or 6 year olds were listening to, I guess.
Yeah.
So like, you know, and it was, you know, Billy Joel, Steely Dan. Steely Dan was another big one. Like, I love Steely Dan.
That's a recent thing for me, Steely Dan, and it's why did I not listen to this later?
Right.
It's so easy to talk shit about them, but man, they are so good. Like, even all these years later. So I mean, like, I think like, I guess like pre me playing guitar and like actually becoming a musician, like I guess like the main records that kind of got me into like the idea of playing music would have been like would probably be like Asia by Steely Dan, Sold Out, Tower of Power, and like any Pat Metheny record, because my dad was a huge Pat Metheny. He owned every single Pat Metheny record known to man, and so like you know, I like even like he didn't know the names of any of the songs because they're all like, you know, they have no words, so like why would we put that to memory? But like, you know, we would like we're always like singing the melodies around the house and like hearing all that stuff.
That's so awesome.
So that was, you know, that was you know, like I guess those are like the big ones for you know, before I started playing. And then once I started playing, you know, I kind of like got around to like I kind of like became like the obsessive guitar freak that I am now after I looked up Eddie Van Halen Eruption on YouTube. And let's like, you know, I feel like that's most people's like either like hearing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show or hearing Van Halen for the first time. It's a very come to earth, you know, to earth moment. But yeah, like I saw the video of like the live video of Eddie playing Eruption, and then I went and found Van Halen 1, like that whole first record, and like that was like, you know, I mean that's one right there, because that's like that put me on the path to pursue that. And then while I was like, when I like maybe 3 or 4 years into me like playing, I heard like, I mean, like I'm also like a huge like Joe Satriani fan, and it all started with like I mean any of his records too, but like I guess like the one classic is like Surfing with the Alien. And like when I heard that, yeah, I was like, you know, it just made me just, what the fuck is that? And like I've had songs that have done that for me, but like as far as like a whole album, that was like, that really like, you know, I was like, that's a guitar. Like how is he doing any of this? So that's two. And I guess like if we're doing like a big three type of thing, the third came a bit later on after I had been attending school at Rutgers and studying with Vic Juris, my teacher, my former teacher who passed at the end of last year. It was actually like in the middle of early to mid 2019, and I had at that point I had kind of been burnt out on jazz. Like I was really not into it, and it's because I didn't really grow up with playing jazz. Like even when I started, I'd heard it, obviously with Matheny and stuff like that, but I never really knew where to start and how to dig into it. But then in early 2019, Vic released a record called Two Guitars, and it's a trio record. It's Vic on guitar, Jay Anderson on bass, and Adam Nussbaum on drums, and it's just the three of them. It's not like it is a big sound because Vic is a very if you know anything about Vic, he makes sounds he makes the guitar sound so much more than six strings. And that when I heard that record, I was like, oh, Vic's got a new record out. And then I pressed play and I listened through the whole thing five or six times in a row. And I was just I could not stop. I was like, this is what music is. This is what I think of when I think of jazz. And I was like, that's that kind of reopened my mind to jazz isn't just this paint by numbers, formulaic thing. It's something so much more than that. And then, and that was that was it for me. So I guess after I started playing the big three, Van Halen 1, Surfing with the Alien, and Vic Juris Two Guitars. So that's it. I get, and there's hundreds and hundreds of honorable mentions too.
Yeah.
We'll be here for 5 hours if I try to name all of them. But I don't know if I had to pick a few, it would be literally anything by Bill Evans, anything by Bill Evans, the great jazz piano player. He's just my
favorite.
I have a Bill Evans addiction on my. If you look at my my listening history.
For sure, yeah. Those are all just such great records, Liam, you have anything else you want to touch upon real quick, man?
I just wanted to thank you guys for having me. You guys are just obsessed guitar nerds, and I love that so much about you, and I hope you never ever lose that in your lives, because it's I wish and hope that everyone has a passion and kind of something they strive towards as much as you guys do with your instruments. It's really, really inspiring to get to play and hang out and talk with you guys about not only just guitars but music as a whole. I really respect and love you guys for that.
Yeah, dude,
we love you too, man.
It's such a pleasure having you. Miss. There was a point in time where we'd be like, hey man, I'll see you next month. Because we'd always
right.
So good to catch up. And Ben, always good to see you every week as well too. Or
of course, man,
during the week. Depending on what's going
on.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys are doing well, thriving, and practicing your craft. Love to hear it and love to see you guys.
Yeah. So, hope everyone takes care. If you guys are listening to this, we've got plenty of episodes left. Everyone wants more Liam McGeary, one of the greatest musicians I've ever had the pleasure of performing with. I hope everyone's staying well. And until next time, this is the BZ Music Podcast. Thank you so much.